Why, hello there, everyone. My name is Mike, and this is the Bored Cyborg. Oh my god! Welcome back to yet another episode. Today I'm bringing you guys a list of 7. 7 alien slash UFO slash abduction movies from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. Do I have any from the 2000s? Actually, I don't think I do. But I want to talk about each and every one in the order that they came out. I figure I'd make it in some sort of an order and just kind of discuss them, talk about them, how I liked them, how I didn't like them. They're pretty much all the ones on this film I did enjoy to an extent, but I will go into it. The first one up, I'm going to jump right in, guys, is 1982's Extra. 1982, what a year for alien abduction films. By the way, this has like a dual cover, really cool. What a year for alien slash UFO slash abduction movies. Extra, 1982. The Thing and E.T. all came out in the same year. Damn. Now, The Thing and E.T. I think are masterpieces, The Thing being one of my favorite films of all time. But Extra is an underrated masterpiece. It's not a perfect film, but I think it's great, and I love many things about it. Extra starts off with it gets right to it, man. It doesn't waste any time. And a father and son are playing catch out at their old cottage farmhouse thing. And there's a great shot of the father throwing like a stick. I think it's like a stick. I guess he's playing fetch with his young son. And the stick gets like freeze framed in the air and a bright light flashes, and then all of a sudden you see the father in a series of bizarre shots. The father is abducted, or so it leads us to believe. The father is abducted, and it cuts forward in time like 3 years, I think it is, and it picks up with a woman who's now living by herself or with her son. This woman was married to this guy who disappeared, obviously, and it picks up with their story, and all of a sudden this thing crash lands back on Earth, and this really creepy creature that is practical and absolutely awesome. That's a better look at him. And it's a simple effect of like somebody walking like backwards, you know, on their all fours, backwards on their all fours, and the alien head is upturned so it looks like it's upright. It's hard to explain. I'll show a picture of it or something. But man, is this effect creepy. And the color of this alien creature and just the practical goopiness of it, it freaks me out. It really freaked me out the first time I watched this in my late teens, early 20s. But watching it again, I was like, yep, still effective. This has some of the great practical scenes of the 80s. One, including a young woman who gets impregnated by our creature here. I guess it's called Extra. I don't know. Extraterrestrial. I don't know what that title really means. But a young woman gets impregnated with this long phallic tube that's just like pumping, I guess, an egg into her. And then all of a sudden, she gives birth. She's bloating, huge stomach. She gives birth to a full grown-ass man. A full-sized grown-ass man who turns out to be the father from the beginning. Or is it? That's kind of what the story setup is. I don't want to go too deep into it, but there are some crazy, bizarre scenes that involve little clown people and just carousels and weird, trippy lighting, and I can't even explain some of the shit that goes down in this. I still don't know what this film is really about, and I've seen it twice. It's an alien abduction film. I mean, there are even scenes where the father, who we're not sure if he's like an alien or like a clone of the father, or if he's actually the father himself. It's very strange, but there's like a scene of him sucking his son's shoulder, which gives his son like telekinetic powers. I swear. And the father's like eating the son's, the eggs of his son's pet snake, and doing just really odd shit. It's so otherworldly. It's so bizarre. It's so surreal. I love it. It is Extra. Next up is Communion from 1989. I wish I owned this film, but I do not. talk about another weird motherfucker of a movie. Chris Walken plays the abductee in this movie. And man, it's one of those performances where the director was like, hey, Chris, you've got the floor, my friend. Do your little dance, do your little thing. And man, he has full reign over his performance, and it shows. There is no actor like Christopher Walken. I will watch anything with him. He is one of the greats. Not only is he a great actor that could sort of slip into almost any role, everything from Catch Me If You Can to freaking Communion, but when he is given full reign to build his character how he wants and do whatever he wants to do with his performance, man, there is nothing like it. Just, it's so sporadic. It's so compulsive, or impulsive, I should say, and off the cuff, and you're just like, that wasn't in the script. That definitely was not in the script, and you just eat it up. It's so good. The film would not be as much as it is if it wasn't for Chris Walken. Christopher Walken makes this movie. His unpredictable nature when performing is just infinitely entertaining. So the story is actually based on Whitley Strieber, who is a fiction author, and he wrote classics like Wolfen, and he wrote another one. I'm going to make it pop up because I forgot it. Wolfen was made into a film with Albert Finney. Werewolf story. Really good one. I've not read any of his books, but he's probably most famous for Communion, which is what this movie is based on. Now, Communion is a non-fiction account of Whitley Strieber, the writer's abduction story, which is truly bizarre, and seems like it could only come from the mind of a fiction writer. Obviously, it loses some credibility because of the fact that he is a fictional writer. Now, I am not just going to get into conspiracies or anything here, but I am totally open to hearing some compelling evidence when it comes to abductions. I've not heard much of it, and I have searched. When I was a teenager, I was really into this stuff. The Travis Walton one is kind of fishy, but there could seem like there are other reasons why they could have done it. The Whitley Strieber one is kind of convincing as well, but I don't know, man. I feel like if there is something out there watching us, which I do believe there is life out there, but I believe if it's keeping tabs on us, watching us, guiding us, whatever, that it wouldn't really want to meddle with us, because they'd probably be so far advanced that they don't need to experiment on us to figure out what we're all about. They've probably been there, done that. That's sort of my thinking. And to be honest, the human mind is a powerful thing, and never underestimate the power of it. We still know very little about the mind and its capabilities and what it could produce in terms of visions and dreams. Of course, think of dreams and just lucid dreaming. There are so many explanations, so many routes you could go down. But anyway, this is not a conspiracy theory or alien abduction podcast or anything. So it follows Christopher Walken's character with his family, who goes out to this cottage, which seems to be kind of a trope at this point in these sorts of movies. And they start experiencing weird lights and strange things going on during the night that seem like lucid dreams. And these weird little, like, stone-faced creatures, like, hobbling into Chris Walken's room and taking him away as he's like, I'm Chris Walken, what's going on? His wife starts to see that he's kind of changing, and his son, who is a decent actor, he's not the best, at times he's alright, and his son starts to have similar sort of visions, as if these aliens are sort of working on the father and son in tandem, or maybe it's passed down, and man, and it ends up with him, like, in sort of therapy circles talking about to other people that have had these sorts of experiences. Now, we do get our stereotypical Greys, who are very, very wiry and lanky and sort of float around. They're kind of goofy in terms of practical effects, but I really like them. There's something cool about them, and there is this one great shot when we first see the alien in the first 15 minutes. It's only a little bit of the alien. It's an eye that's sort of peeking around a dresser, around a doorway or something, like the corner of his eye, and it's really creepy. It's sort of this fast zoom or slow zoom, I can't remember which, into this Grey's eye. And there's even a sequence, by the way, where Chris Walken, in one of his, like, abduction experiences, is kind of dancing with one of the wiry one of the wiry aliens, and I'm like, there it is. You got to get a Christopher Walken dance sequence in every single one of his movies. It's definitely one of the weirdest alien abduction films, one of the weirdest films on this list. It's arguably weirder than Extra, because some of the scenes in Communion just make absolutely no sense. It's more straightforward, I will say, in what it's saying, what it's trying to say, than Extra is, which is more sort of obscure and obtuse. But Communion is a fun movie. I've really enjoyed it. I guess a lot of people don't like this movie, but I'm easily pleased when it comes to alien flicks and the imagination that goes into creating them. I think it's a fascinating movie, and it is totally worth seeing for Chris Walken's performance, which is uncanny, to say the least. That is Communion. Next up, I do own this one. I am so grateful and lucky to own this. Got this for a pretty good used price on eBay a few weeks back. I think I showed it in an unboxing video, if I'm not mistaken. That is the McPherson tape. Oh, this is so cool. Vinegar Syndrome, thank you. This is a shot-on-video, found footage film from 1988. Yes, from 1980 freaking 8. That makes it, in my opinion, the first found footage film ever. Fully found footage film, I will say. The first fully found footage film. There you go for some alliteration. This movie came out in between Cannibal Holocaust, which is more of a narrative meets found footage idea. Sure, it did start the found footage concepts, but this is it fully fleshed out for the first time, as far as we know, in my opinion. And this predates the Blair Witch Project by 11 years, and I'm pretty confident that the guys who did Myrick and Sanchez, that did Blair Witch Project, one of my favorite films of all time, definitely saw this little film, the McPherson tape, because there are some scenes in the woods that kind of remind me of the Blair Witch Project in a lot of cool ways. So this is directed by Dean Alioto, and he stars as the cameraman named Michael in this film, who is also a character, obviously. And it picks up with Michael turning on this camera, and he's experimenting with the camera. He just got it or whatever, and he's shooting their niece's, I think it's their niece's birthday party. That's what it is. It's two brothers, or three brothers, including Michael, some girlfriends, and a girlfriend and a wife, and then the mother, the sort of the head of the family, and the little girl, the niece. All of these characters, for the first 10 minutes or so, we're sort of developing with very naturalistic dialogue, super organic, super awkward, and it really feels like back in the 80s, back in the 90s when I grew up even, you turn on a camera and everybody gets super weird when you turn on a camera, like making really bad jokes and things like that, and just awkwardness. This film has all of that. There are some lines of dialogue where it's like, what does that even mean? But it makes sense when people are in the heat of the moment. What I'm getting at is they didn't do many takes, and I know this film was shot on like $6,000 budget, and they probably didn't have much film. Actually, it was shot on video, so much time, I guess, in terms of tapes. But they didn't do many takes, and that really adds to the organic nature of the McPherson tape, and it adds to it overall. It adds to the realistic feel of it. Now, they start experiencing weird things. They hear a loud sound. They go out into the woods, and they see a creepy, weird red light, and they start following it. And of course, they get out into the woods, which is very Blair Witch, again, this entire sequence, and they see this spaceship, this alien spacecraft. They refer to it as a spaceship, which I think is great. And they use very old-timey words like aliens, I guess, and spaceship, which not many of these films really refer to those things as. Like spaceship, that's like such a 50s, 60s term. But it works. I like it quite a bit. And the McPherson tape continues on, getting stranger and stranger for this family. It turns into a siege-like situation, where it appears that the aliens have them surrounded in their little cottage home in the middle of the woods, and there are some lines of dialogue that sort of make it feel like they're alone, like other families that live somewhat nearby are gone away on vacation or for fishing, things like that. And people start disappearing, and the tension sort of builds up more and more with a great little payoff at the end. Oh, it gives you goosebumps, the last shot. It's like, whoo. Now, the Greys in this film, very stereotypical. They look okay. They could have looked a little bit better, but they're not bad. It's kind of goofy at points, but it still really works for me. I just love the intimate feel of this movie, and the costume design, the creature design is generic and stereotypical, but it kind of works. In terms of the characters, they're all a little bit different. You know, you got the younger brother who's kind of picked on by his older brothers. You got the middle brother who's like a good athlete and is going to school. And then you got the older brother who's married with a kid. And they all feel very different. And the girlfriend is sort of, I don't know, she's not really in it too much. The wife of the older brother is more of a main character, where she's sort of catatonic at points when her husband disappears. Sorry, spoilers. But she's sort of the one that's like, this can't be happening. You know, like, she does it really, really well. Very organic. And then my favorite character, of course, is the old woman, who is just so off the cuff. She's the best improvisational actor by far. And some of the lines she says about, you know, being women waiting for their whole lives and things like that. I'm not going to go into the dialogue. You could see it and figure it out for yourself. But there are just so many great moments. She's the one who feels most comfortable, especially when she starts trying to take control of the situation as the lead, as the head of the household, per se. And, oh man, the little girl's in it, but she's not. She's sort of there for the audience to feel scared for through her, but she doesn't do a great job. She's kind of wooden at points, I gotta be honest. She's by far the worst actor in the film. But it really works for me. I gave this film a 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoy the McPherson tape. So glad to own this as a found footage fanatic. I love that this is out on Blu-ray. It looks really good as it's going to look for shot on video. It's clear as I want it to be, I will say. It still looks shot on video, which is great, but they cleaned it up as best as they could. Now, there's a director's cut, which is like 30 seconds longer. I watched the original version. By the way, I think this film is from 1989, it says on the back. I thought it was 88. Forgive me. I probably already corrected it with a little bloop. But anyway, guys, that is the McPherson tape. Can't recommend this one enough, especially for my found footage fans out there. I love this one. Glad to own it. The McPherson tape. Next up is Fire in the Sky. Now, I used to love this movie. I still really, really like it. But watching it again, a little bit older, I watched it in my late teens for the first time, and it scared the hell out of me. I was more so into UFOs and alien abduction stuff in my teens, so it really affected me. And certain things really stick with you from this film. Now, I do have some issues with it. I do feel like it feels like a really good TV movie, I'll say. But it's not a TV movie. I believe it was a theatrical release. The characters are interesting. Robert Patrick is the lead character here. D.B. Sweeney is the one who gets abducted. This is based on the famous Travis Walton abduction case, I'll say, where a lot of people have dismissed it as a hoax and about a money-garnering sort of thing, a fame kind of these guys trying to get fame. But it was a group of loggers that was out, I don't even know where. It probably says on the back. It does not say on the back. But it was about a group of loggers in the 70s who go out who find themselves in the middle of the woods, and they see this weird light, and they go to it, and of course D.B. Sweeney's character, Travis Walton, gets out of the car and is sort of mesmerized, and he's like, whoa, and he gets abducted, presumably. Or at least he disappears in the narrative. Now, the townsfolk, it's another small town sort of thing. The townsfolk don't believe these guys. They think they murdered Travis Walton and all these things, and they're trying to clear their name. They do a lie detector test and all that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, Travis Walton appears back in the town. He calls Robert Patrick's character one night, and they go out to find him butt naked in the middle of nowhere. And it's raining, and Travis Walton is sort of like, or D.B. Sweeney's character is sort of very jumpy and scared and obviously traumatized. And so it throws everything for a loop, and the town obviously believes that they didn't murder Travis at this point. And the last act of the film is really where this film shines. I actually think the last act should have been cut into the main narrative of the film after Walton gets abducted, to keep us on edge and to sort of lead us in to what's going on. I think it would have been a better narrative structure in terms of editing to keep cutting back between Walton's experience in the craft with these aliens. Because that's what the third act is, and it is frightening. This ship is a very organic, earthy tone, goopy, just practical effects heaven, where the, gravity is all weird and shoddy. And of course, it has this sequence where Travis is being probed and experimented on by these greys that are so creepy, guys. These greys are one of the most creepy things about this film, and something that really sticks with you. I'll show it to you on the back of the box there. Oh my god. They're very humanoid. They have human-like features, but the practical effects are excellent. This is just an example of practical effects done so right in the dawn of CG back in 92, was this, or 93? 1993, so this is around the time of Jurassic Park, Lawnmower Man, things like that. But thank God these greys were practical, because it really adds to this probing scene, this experimentation scene that is happening with Walton. You feel his pain, you feel his fear, and it's by far the best part of the film. I love that sequence, and again, I wish it was cut up and inserted bit by bit into the main narrative while they were trying to figure out what was going on with Travis Walton's disappearance. I think the film would have fared better. This one is directed by Robert Lieberman, and he does a solid job here. Just a creepy film overall, a really solid alien abduction film, one I definitely recommend. A solid 3 to 3.5 out of 5. That is fire in the sky. Next up is a film that I don't own, that is Dark Skies from 2013. Now, Dark Skies is not a great film. It's very cliche-ridden. It's very generic. But it handles its tropes and cliches pretty well, and the filmmaking is solid. It's directed by Scott Stewart, who brought us a very strange set of films in the early 2010s, early to mid-2010s, with Priest, Legion, both starring Paul Bettany, films that I just think are just average. I can't really get into them. And then Dark Skies. And I'd say it's the best out of those three that he directed in and around the same time. Very professional look and feel to it, like I said. And this film is it's sort of like Poltergeist in a lot of ways, where it follows this family that has a lot of strange things happening to them, increasingly strange. And it's sort of also like Paranormal Activity, because every time the night falls, you know shit's about to get weird and real and ramp up. And it does so at a very good pace, I think. And the film does, it keeps you engaged. It's entertaining. It's never boring despite its vanilla-ness. The acting leaves some to be desired. The Kerry Russell is in this. I forgot the guy's name. The sons are okay. It's just, the acting isn't great, but I think it could be more attributed to the generic average script more than anything in terms of dialogue. The things that happen in the film are fine, are okay, are good, but the dialogue is kind of just weak, I'll say. Just, again, very generic. That's sort of the word that it describes this movie as a whole. And it sort of reminded me of Communion as well, where it has similar father-son dynamics about them being connected to this extraterrestrial goings-on, sort of like the father and son in Communion are. And it seems to be affecting the whole family, but more intimately the father and the son. There is a cool character in J.K. Simmons, who plays this sort of reclusive conspiracy theorist guy who's been tracking all these stories and documenting them, and of course is outed by the community and lives in this apartment building away from everything, so that he says that he's able to live there more comfortably because the aliens don't bother him there. He had some experiences with them as well. Now, this dude, J.K. Simmons, is a great actor, and he does the best with what he's given, but it's the most cliche, trope-ridden dialogue you could ever come up with, ever imagine. It's like, the men in suits they know what's going on, and the UFOs, and it's just like so generic. and you know exactly where he's going, but he handles it with a conviction that is admirable, I will say, despite its overall goofiness. The film takes itself a little bit too seriously, which actually adds to the fun for me. It's about a 2.5 out of 5. I can't quite give it a 3, maybe a 3 on a good day, 2.5 to 3, 2.75. So I think on Letterboxd I did give it a 3, because if you round up 2.75, it'd have to be a 3. I wish you could do 2.75 on Letterboxd, but you can't. That's how I feel about this one. Dark Skies isn't the best, but it's definitely one that I'd like to have in the collection at some point. It was passable fun, never boring at least. That is Dark Skies. Next up is one I do own on DVD by Scream Factory. That is Extraterrestrial. This one is directed by the Vicious Brothers, who brought us a great found footage film called Grave Encounters, and its sequel, which is also very good. I like both of them quite a bit. My kind of found footage. But this one is a narrative film, and I think they should probably stick to found footage films, because this one is average as well. The thing about this movie is the acting is awful. So I do attribute that to the direction and the script. The acting and the characters are so boring, just cardboard flat, one-dimensional, stupid, cliche stereotypes. And it's just cringy at points, to be quite honest. But Extraterrestrial knows what it is, and it's a fun alien abduction film with some really cool creature design, some really cool alien ship design in this one, and it plays with it has some moments that you're like, that was clever. For example, like a scene where our characters realize that it's raining outside of this circle that they are in the forest, and they're like, what the hell's going on? They go over to the edge of where the rain's coming off, and they look up, and it's the circular flying saucer over them, and it's like, that's cool. So it has its moments, and it has some twists and turns here and there, which I think are pretty cool. Not quite twists, but just jarring moments that are like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. Once it gets to the good stuff, it becomes a much more fun film. The film drags in the beginning, just setting our characters up and getting them out to this cottage for ridiculous reasons, to take pictures of it because their parents are selling it or whatever. Just a major MacGuffin. But they get out to this cottage, and of course their friends tag along, unbeknownst to the main girl, the final girl, I should say. And they end up partying out there, and just really generic. And you're just like, alright, get to the good stuff. Get to the alien stuff. And it really starts picking up with Michael Ironside's character, who is sort of he's growing weed in the middle of the forest, and he's like, they're out to get us, man, they're watching us, the government, this and that. He's one of those cuckoo characters out in the woods, growing, selling, and smoking a whole bunch of weed. And it's great to see him pop up. I wish he was in the film longer. There's no reason why he couldn't have been in the film longer, I'll just say. I don't want to spoil anything, but Extraterrestrial, not a bad film, really picks up steam in the second and third act. We get to a point where we end up in the ship, which is kind of cool, nowhere near as cool as Fire in the Sky, but it has some funny probing scenes, actually. A really dark, dismal, hopeless ending, which I thought was really cool, that just goes on and on and on. I'm like, holy crap, this is just going on. And what's the song that plays? Spirit in the Sky, which is a great way to sort of end the movie. Just a funny ending that sort of brings everything together. And Extraterrestrial, I could recommend it to people who like these sorts of films, like a B sci-fi action movie. It's definitely a B movie. Terrible acting, terrible characters, but once they start kicking the bucket and become fodder for us to root for their deaths, that's when it becomes fun. Doesn't take too long to get there either, so that is Extraterrestrial. And last but certainly not least, in fact, this is my favorite. I saved the newest and my favorite for last. This film premiered at film festivals last year, as of recording this video, in 2019, and came out on Amazon Prime at the end of May, and it is incredible. I did a review for this film, which I seldom do full reviews for movies, but check that out. It is The Vast of Night. I'm not going to go too deep into detail here, but what I'll say is this is Andrew Patterson's debut film, and it captures all the emotions accompanied with feeling like a child, and as you're growing up, especially for me in my teens, wondering if we're alone in this universe, and the fact that we're probably not alone in this universe. Again, I go into all these ideas in my review, so feel free to check that out. But The Vast of Night follows two characters, Everett and Faye, as they come across this mysterious signal that's coming in through the radio waves, and they investigate and interview people to try to find out what's going on in this small, very small town out in New Mexico in the late 50s. It is very Outer Limits feeling. It has Twilight Zone influences all over it. In fact, it opens up on a television where it dollies in and goes into the TV, which enters us into our story, The Vast of Night. Great, quirky characters that we learn a lot about just through dialogue and the way they interact with one another. And it's very Spielbergian, and it captures the allure, the magic, the wonder of Spielberg's alien films, Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T., and it just captures those feelings. It's so hard for me to articulate. It's a movie I feel on a very deep level because of my youth, because of my teenage years, and because of my feelings about our universe now. And the fact that I want to believe, I want to know that we're not alone in this universe. Or do I? Or what if we are alone in this universe? That's equally as terrifying, like H.G. Wells once said. And it deals with all these ideas better than any film that deals with aliens. Definitely any film on this list, but any film that I've ever seen, including the Spielberg classics. I think it gets it perfect. It's a spooky, eerie, existential horror sort of feeling that you get. The film has pathos, and you feel for these characters as they're trying to navigate their own isolation, just like this town is isolated, and this possible alien presence is sort of watching over them. God, it is so beautiful, and I absolutely love this movie. It's a perfect 5 out of 5 for me. My favorite on this list, one of my favorite of last year and this year, if you want to count it a film from this year. So much great camera work and exposition and character work with, like, the camera work with foreshadowing, like lights in the sky, sort of the street lights that sort of look like flying saucers in and of themselves. And it's just so magical, guys, and really swept me away and just snared my imagination. Totally love this movie. Again, I think it's perfect. I can't wait to watch it again. I hope this gets a DVD and Blu-ray release. Can't recommend this film enough, guys. Again, check out my review. I really go into depth, and I was really proud of that review, so please feel free to check that out to get my full feelings on the movie. I'd love to know what you thought of it. Anyway, guys, that is The Vast of Night. I just want to thank you all for checking out my 7 alien abduction UFO films list. It was a random list. I wanted to try to bring up movies that not many people have heard of or have seen. Of course, everyone knows Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Everyone knows E.T., The Thing, Body Snatchers, all those sorts of movies. But you know me, I wanted to bring some to the forefront that range everywhere from to fantastic to perfect, in my opinion. And I hope you guys found some new films to check out, especially if you love the UFO alien abduction genre like I do. I'd love to know what your favorite film in this subgenre is, so feel free to leave that down in the comments below, and we could get a little discussion rolling. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, as well as the little bell notifications. Anyway, guys, I will see you all next time. Bored Cyborg is out.